We're still live there. It's on. Man. For the technical delay, and thank you for joining us this holiday season so early in the morning. I'm going to ask Mrs. Julie Morlock to call roll this morning. We have Amanda McCambridge joining us. Thank you, Amanda, for joining us, who will be taking over the minute-taking duties, and so make sure we have everyone present and accounted for. So at this time, Ms. Morlock, will you call roll?
I know that Colin Kennedy is not here. Chrissy Jennings is.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Okay. Elizabeth Robb.
She's there. I see her.
Do you want them to say yes, or what do you want to do?
Yes.
Present, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and Judge, and happy birthday yesterday.
Thank you.
Donna Schoenfeld.
Donna is not.
I don't see her. Sonia Reese.
Here.
Dave Sherrar.
Present.
Mark Jontry.
Present.
Diane Schultz.
Here.
Kevin McCarthy.
Present.
Joni Painter.
Here.
Tom Barr.
Here.
Karen Zangerly. I'll give her a try here. Nope. Stephanie Barish.
Present.
Colleen O'Connor.
Dolly was on.
She was on.
Present. Sorry, I think my computer glitched. I'm here.
All right, thank you. Lisa Thompson. Nope. Eric Tome.
Is there?
He could not join us this morning.
Okay. Rebecca Foley.
Present.
Susan Schaefer.
Here.
Brian Whipperman.
Present.
David Taylor.
Present.
Kristen Adams.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Also, I'd like to welcome Christy Jennings, who is the nurse manager for Carl Broman's mental health and addiction recovery unit. Thanks for joining us, Chrissy, and thanks for your patience this morning. I know you're probably very busy and anxious to get back to work. Chrissy's filling in today for Colin Kennedy, and we'll give a report to us in a little bit. We have before you, I hope you had an opportunity to read the minutes of our September 11th. I didn't take a motion to approve those at this time. Screen.
So moved.
Motion by member Jontry. Is there a second to the motion to approve? Second by member Schaefer. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion is carried and the minutes will be approved. We don't have any members of the public. And so we'll go on for our meeting this morning. And we'll start off with behavioral health forum and a presentation. There's some talk here. I'll turn this over to our behavioral health coordinating supervisor. And so, Tricia, you're on up there. Okay. You have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to start by giving some updates on our behavioral health forum. We've talked a little bit about it in the past and some of the differences, but we have also officially kicked it off. And in the midst of doing that, I know all of you received numerous emails from me about what was coming, how to promote it, things like that. But we have officially started the 2020-2021 virtual behavioral health community forum and have sessions scheduled all the way through the end of April at present time, and continue to update and confirm new presentations as we go on. So we have a number of people who are part of the original planning committee who continue to reach out to try to add to the presentations that are already out there and available to register for. Our subcommittee who worked on what sessions we should present to the public, that committee came up with 39 presentations. And I'm thankful to say that we have confirmed easily half of those so far with presenters and agreed upon dates and times. And while we had to stray a little bit from our original plan of, let's say, offering all topics related to trauma on a specific day of a specific week and at a specific time, we have found that getting presenters to confirm, as well as timing of all of those requests, has meant also flexibility. And I have said even before, if nothing else, I think COVID has taught us how to be more flexible. So that original idea is not something that we were able to really put into effect, but we have been able to confirm with a number of folks. And I think in a time when we are all pulled in different directions and either speaking in different groups or managing so many different things at one time, the fact that we have folks who are willing to commit to continue to give these presentations and add one more thing is really appreciated. So one of the things that we've done is that we continually update our website. And that is the first place that we update anytime we add a new presentation for the forum. It includes the registration link. Each registration link is specific to that particular forum session. We do also add them all as events onto Facebook, and right now we have all of the events added through either January or February. And I will acknowledge it is a monotonous process to get them added to Facebook. So we do maybe about 5 to 10 at a time, and then honestly I take a few days break from updating Facebook on it and then go back and add more. But we have through January or February out on Facebook right now. And they're being promoted through social media. And WGLT and the Panagraph both did some interviews and articles about the forum as well. So I have asked Jonathan to share a screen and just show what the website looks like right now so that you can be familiar with it. And as a quick overview, if you go to the county website, I have put in a request that it be added to the homepage, but I know they haven't had enough time to respond to that yet. But the way you can get there is if you go to departments and then you find behavioral health, and then we have a tab for events. And on the events page is every forum session for that we have scheduled. Again, it gets updated every time we have a new one confirmed. The website is actually one of the very first things that we do so that gets pushed out. Again, each session lists the presenters, the dates, the time, as well as what we've identified as the objectives for that session, and the unique registration link. That registration link allows people to attend live and ask questions as they have them. Which in our first session, I'd say we probably had approximately 10 questions from audience members, maybe give or take a few. But the participation was really good, in my opinion. And overall, the process seemed to work really well. In that first session that we did, we had 103 who had registered, and we had 79 who attended. With the way that we have it set up, we can then follow up with both attendees and with those who weren't able to make it but had registered. And so if you did attend, or if you happened to register and didn't make it, you received an email from me earlier this week, either inviting you to future forum sessions and a link to the webpage to look at those, or with a link to the recording. So that's the other piece that I have asked Jonathan to share with us is we created a YouTube channel specific to BHCC so that all of the forum sessions after they're completed can be uploaded here. That way, whether you were able to attend or not, or let's say you attended and you really liked it and you want to share it with others, you have access to that. We also didn't want it to get sort of rolled into all of the videos that are on the county's YouTube channel. Knowing with all of the committee meetings and county board meetings, those forum sessions would be mixed in and it would be a lot harder to find. So we have a behavioral health YouTube channel, which also has a direct link from the website. So that again, you don't have to do some really extensive search. If you, again, are on that events page, it's at the very top with a link to the YouTube channel. The other thing that we're doing is after recording is on the YouTube channel, we're updating where it previously said registration with a registration link to now include view previously recorded session with a direct link to that specific video. And pushing some of that out on social media as well. But we are, or at least I can say, I'm really happy with how it's turned out so far. I think one of the biggest hurdles was conceptualizing how to do this in a virtual format and how to schedule it. But I know some of the feedback we've gotten so far is that people like that they can attend one session and it doesn't take up their whole day, and that they can do it over a lunch hour or early in the meeting. And so the feedback so far has been positive. We do have a survey option also within the webinar platform. And so we will be continuing to collect and look at survey responses and what people's feedback continues to be, and put all of that together. I will give a quick plug for our forum session next week. Colleen O'Connor and Neil Iden are both presenting Ending the Silence for Families to help parents, adults involved with middle school and high school age children, one, recognize some signs of mental illness, but also how to have conversations both with your child and with the school when there are concerns. So that is next Thursday, December 17th at 8 a.m. I would also be happy to answer any questions about the forum.
Okay, thank you. Go on to item B. Brian Whipperman, welcome. And Chrissy, thank you again for joining us. Did Karen ever come on the screen? We have Karen.
No,
Okay.
no, and I don't have an email back from her yet.
Okay, let's go ahead then with our annual partner update. Brian?
Yes, sir.
Is on. Welcome.
Yes, sir.
And you have the floor. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. I had spoken to Trish a few weeks ago, and she just kind of asked me to kind of update this great group, on some of the new things we have going on at Mark First. Hopefully, you have all seen that we moved our pediatric therapy center to the grounds of Carl Broman in their medical building. Big shout out to their team, Colleen and John Hesse and that group. They have been absolutely tremendous to work with and helping us build out our new pediatric therapy center. For those of you who've been here to Hunt Drive, you know that we were working in a very confined space of about 1,000 square feet. We had 4 rooms for pediatric therapy. And on a typical year, we can serve 800 kiddos, both out in the community and early intervention, and and then over 3 in our clinic. So 1,000 square feet is really hard to do, specifically when social distancing is a thing. So we are now in 4,700 square feet. We have a 1,000-foot motor gym. We have 1,000 square foot sensory gym, state-of-the-art sensory gym, whole bunch of therapy rooms, a casting room. It's really just a great space, and hopefully I can find a way to, if anybody wants to see it, I'd be happy to meet you over there and take you on a tour. We're forever doing those. Very excited about it. It has really been tremendous. And with that new space, we've added ABA therapy services. We have hired our first BCBA for peds. We've had them for quite some time for the adults we serve, but we now have a BCBA for pediatric therapy. We already have either 3 or 4 kiddos in the clinic, each of whom get roughly 30 plus hours a week of therapy. So they're there almost every day, which is tremendous. We've added a whole bunch of staff to work with those kiddos, so it's just been a really promising new service that we're providing the community. The other thing that we are doing here at in 2020 is we have added a behavioral health clinic to Mark First. Lots of positives for this. As many of you know, one of the big struggles that adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities face is they sit on the PUNS list at the state level the day they turn 22 and leave our schools. Right now, the PUNS list being pulled, the state has declared the adults being pulled will have spent 60 months on the PUNS list, meaning they've gotten no state funding for any sort of supports whatsoever. Our behavioral health clinic will allow us to see those same adults, if they are duly diagnosed with mental health disorders, we can see them in the behavioral health clinic, even though they haven't been pulled from the PUNS list. So it's really going to allow us, for our high school transition program, those kiddos who are walking out of school at 22 and mom and dad are, not sure what to do, if they're a dual diagnosis, we're going to be able to start to serve them. So we're going to try building that program up actually through our supported employment program, and then into our day training program, and hopefully it continues to grow. We have 1 social worker right now, and we're about to post for a second staff member for that program already. So really exciting stuff going on for us. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to share that with all of you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I am done, sir.
Thank you, Brian. That's great news. Appreciate filling us in on that. Obviously, the area and the staging for transition for your folks as well. Next is Chrissy Jones. Good morning again, and welcome. Chrissy will give us a report this morning in place of Colleen.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. I'm pleased to kind of share where we're at in our transition to our brand new units, and just the feedback that we've gotten from our staff, our clients, as we've continued to serve them. First and foremost, I absolutely feel that the patients have shared just their gratitude for the thoughtfulness that the staff took. It was a long journey for us to really think through the needs and safe environment. And we get wonderful feedback of open concept, group rooms being larger, feeling spacious, that they can really feel comfortable participating and sharing in that environment. So it's wonderful to hear those types of responses for the mental health unit, and the staff feel that the brightness, the space is so much from a healing perspective as well. And so it's been really great to see the response from both parties. We are continuing from a growth perspective to be able to open up to full capacity, to be recruiting from a physician and staff perspective to ensure we're providing safe care. Also, our addiction recovery service line has been really expanding, and detox unit is just flourished in our day program. We've been able to, based on social distancing, provide in-person addiction recovery, partial day programming, and just be flexible in regards to the space that we have available here on the hospital grounds to not have to go to virtual at this time. And so that's been a blessing as well. Via a more group kind of environment, maybe it's a COVID positive client, we're still able to provide them the care they need in the medical units via the telepsych machine. So that's been a real positive experience as well. I'm just glowing and excited about it. I'm happy to take any kind of questions that you guys may have. And of course, you know, our community is a great partnership.
Thank you, Chrissy. Does anyone have any questions, Chrissy? I know that some of you are having trouble getting on the screen, so you'll just have to speak up to get my attention if you would like to speak at any time. Thank you. Anyone? Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks again for joining us and taking your time today. Appreciate your report.
You're welcome.
Tricia, has Karen ever joined? Had been on? I don't see her.
I don't see her either, sir.
Yeah. Well, we'll go on. I don't see Karen Zanger from Path on right now. I'll turn this back over to Tricia to talk about our triage center.
So we, at
Larry,
the end of, I'm sorry, Chairman, I didn't hear you.
it's okay. I was trying to find you on the screen. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So at the end of August, so right before our last BHCC meeting, Triage expanded their hours from 7:30 a.m. to 3 a.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year. One of the things that we have seen since is that October and November really, for us, the usage of Triage expanded quite a bit compared to what numbers had been before. And while we don't have a specific way to know exactly what the cause of that is, I suspect that it's largely, one, it does coincide with when we began to advertise and when we began to distribute marketing materials within the community. But I think it's also a reflection of individuals' mental health status, and it coincides with what I know other crisis providers have seen within the community from conversations with PATH and mobile crisis in particular. And so I think that plays a part. So in your packets, you have information both specific to November. So I know one of the things that came up in our last BHCC meeting was having the information presented both on a continual cumulative basis, but as well as more specific data. So the November data is there, and we continue to see a mix of referral sources. So again, that's where we do have some people who are coming in because they specifically saw an ad somewhere. So we did have, well, and still do have 2 what are known as taillight ads on the back of Connect Transit buses. And I will say I have seen them while driving, and I never thought I'd be so excited to see the back of a bus before. But it's also pretty exciting to see it being promoted and to be able to drive and to see that. So, but mobile crisis, friends and family, we've had some people who have come because either their parent or a friend works for one of the hospitals in town, and the information was shared with them through distribution, or a person who cares about them saw the information on social media that we were open. And so we've continued to, one, to capture that information, but also see a diverse range of who is the original sort of referral source. And again, we continue to track where we're sending people when they leave. What is our discharge location? We have had a number of people who have come in, especially if you look at this chart in terms of percentages. So we have had more in the past month or two who have been homeless when they come in. And so their discharge location is back to the shelter that they originated from. So I can say that we are not, what's reflected here in terms of discharge location, we are not discharging to a shelter for the first time, but instead they are individuals who were homeless and already staying at a shelter when they came in, and that is where they're going back to. As well as some referrals to the hospital that has actually declined for us. We have had fewer that we have had to send to the hospital that we have felt that level of care was required. And a good number have also returned home. We continue to see that the majority of people coming in have received a previous mental health diagnosis, as well as having previously received prior mental health services. Those numbers are so similar, I have not reported on them separately in this data because it has been almost identical. We also, some of our initial questions are about suicidal ideation for the individuals, in addition to the Columbia screening that we do while we're actually performing an assessment. But that's part of the information that I began to include here that was not included in our last BHCC meeting. The other thing that I decided to do with this report is to include quarterly data. So the advantage, or we'll call it an advantage, is that BHCC comes shortly after I report to executive committee. And so when I report to executive committee, I report on a month of data at a time. So I pulled most recent month, November, for executive and included it here. But for your purposes, BHCC meets on a quarterly basis. And rather than have the data split months based on when BHCC is meeting, I am using it for the 3 full months prior to a BHCC meeting. So in this case, it's September, October, November data. So it may seem a little wonky when you generally think of quarters. You generally think of them much neater and in a different span of months. But for reporting to BHCC purposes, that made more sense to me. And then we also have our cumulative data. We do continue to have individuals brought by law enforcement. And I have made a note about some of the outliers on that. I can say that the average length, there have been 2 individuals. One was an individual who did not initially come to triage very voluntarily, and that law enforcement officer was in triage longer than what we would have anticipated. And then we had another individual who actually was having quite a bit of contact with different law enforcement agencies, and not really because there was necessarily a specific problem. They had actually sought out law enforcement for assistance for something. And that law enforcement officer simply had a longer conversation with triage staff. And it was a very different scenario than most of the time that law enforcement may bring someone. So even if I excluded those 2 outliers, we're maintaining less than 10 minutes for officers to have an interaction in triage, which we know is, generally speaking, less time than if they are booking someone or taking someone and being part of going to the hospital. Feedback so far has been really positive. in terms of both individuals and law enforcement. Continued data includes age range, how many are receiving an assessment, how many are not. We've had a few occasions where someone comes in and they are not in a crisis, but they also don't know who provides a certain service. And so we have given them the information. It has been apparent in the conversation with them that they did not need an assessment. There have also been a few folks who have previously presented to triage and been assessed, who come back in to ask a question. And so they fall into that no assessment category. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Beth Ross
Trish,
here.
this is Diane Schultz.
Go ahead, Diane, then I'll ask
Go
mine.
ahead, Beth. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Who's on first? Trish, I'm just curious, I'm surprised to see that 46% of your referrals to triage is a combination of self-referral or family friend type of word of mouth, they know through a family or a friend. So that seems like a high number, and I just wondered if you all were surprised that almost half of your referrals are kind of a self-referral process.
Well, so some of the self-referral also gets counted if they are a repeat person. So if an individual has come into triage more than once, the time they come back the second time becomes a self-referral. Their first time is whoever referred them. So I can think of one person in particular who I know came in the first time because they were referred by Mobile Crisis. They have come back a second time. Their second time counts as a self-referral because they brought themselves back. And it was not a new
But
interaction
still, to
with
me,
another agency.
Yeah, I just think that number to me reflects positively in all kinds of ways on this program. The fact, even based on your explanation, the fact that people are coming back on their own after they become aware, and just the ability of people to have a point of access for, I just think that's a very complimentary and noteworthy statistic.
Thank you for pointing that out too. I think it's, I like that perspective, so thank you. Judge Robb.
Yes, thank you. Can you remind me, please, how many staff people are there at the triage center?
At any one time, we have 3 on staff. Total staff, I would have to look at an org chart. Total staff is ballpark 15 people. And that's a combination of full and part-time staff. But at any one time, we have 3 people on staff. We have a triage center specialist. We have a visitor's aide who functions as a welcoming face as well as a security point. And then we also have a peer, which is an individual who has identified their own behavioral health history. And they serve as a direct resource for what it can be like.
Maybe for the next meeting, could we have a breakdown of the staff and how many of peer folks are and how many of the so-called security type folks are, and then the other category, which I've already forgotten what you said. That would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
If I can get to it fast enough, I might be able to share my screen.
That was Elizabeth.
You really don't have to do it today. Next time is fine for me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I don't know from a technology perspective if I'm set up as a presenter to where I can share my screen. But I can certainly have it for the next meeting because I do have an org chart that I prepare each year. And so I can certainly have one for the next
Might
time.
be able to do it now.
You can share now.
You might try now, Tricia, to share.
Okay.
See if we can get it to come through.
It currently doesn't allow me to.
Hmm. No,
Right.
doesn't look like we're gonna be able to.
That's okay. I will bring it next time, Judge Rob.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm Schaefer.
Yeah, on the charts, and there were quite a few that you said were referred back to the shelter because they were homeless. Have any of those
Mhm.
been able to be serviced by Fuse as a potential Fuse client?
So many of them have not been on our Fuse list. So one of the things that we do is if they are an active Fuse client, Triage has that list. But I also, I manage sort of the intersection matching tool, as well as the one who pulls the data from the Triage tracking spreadsheet. And there's not an overlap of names. So the other thing that we've seen, I mean, I know there's an individual who has come in within the past 30 days who is homeless and has been in more than once, but is also not originally from here, was also recently released from a judicial correctional system, and would not show up on our Fuse list for some facts of what life prior to now has been for them. But when somebody is also appropriate, because there have been times that Triage staff have asked me whether a person is either based on clinical presentation or homelessness or what they know to be justice involvement. So I do get asked on occasion, but we actually have not really seen an overlap of those two.
Anyone else have something to say? Mr. Barr?
Tricia, you may have this already in the data, I just overlooked it, but do you have a number of unduplicated clients you've seen since the program started?
We do. I believe it's in the let me find which page it's on and the chart.
Thank you.
$13.
13, yeah. Unduplicated.
Yes. So it is listed in the cumulative data. It is the graph below the time spent in triage.
Yeah.
But there are, so on a cumulative basis, there are 24 that are unduplicated. We have 4 that have had 2 visits, and we have 3 that have had more than 2 visits.
Thank you.
Page
Welcome.
13. Anyone else? Please speak up if you are not on the screen. Okay, thank you, Tricia. I'd like to go on and talk some more about Fuse.
Okay. So on, I'm trying to pull up my charts again here. So Fuse continues to do outreach to individuals. While we have made some modifications, again, because of COVID, with how we are serving our clients to make sure that staff and clients are safe and socially distanced. We continue to do outreach to individuals who are in the top 25 of the intersection of the matching tool, which identifies the individuals with the highest usage of the justice system and homeless system, who also have a behavioral health indicator in the past 18 months. So in your packets, the first page relative to Fuse, again, is simply an overview. So I just wanted to have that initial infographic be sort of a continual refresher of what Fuse is, how the information comes together, and a little tiny bit about what our process is. And that process is that I run a match every month. I pull, I sort the data, again, to identify who is having the most frequent and total number of contacts, who has had the most recent homeless system contact, as well as having a behavioral health indicator. And then that top 25 go to our Fuse team to begin to do outreach with. After we have made contact with an individual, we then ask them to sign an exchange of information so that we can begin to get their emergency room data. Because one of the things that we track is what their ER visits were like before they became a Fuse participant, and then what their ER visits are like after they became a Fuse participant. But since we do not readily have access to the health data, that can only come after we have made contact with an individual and they sign the exchange of information. One of the things that I do, and so while the infographic in your packet looks very similar from meeting to meeting, the one thing that does get updated on this one is the number of shelter, justice, and ER visits on average. So I do base it on whatever we are seeing in that particular time. So in this context, when I recently ran the match, which is for the most recent 18 months up through December, the top 25 individuals on that list who have intersected the justice and the homeless systems have 183.27 shelter days on average, 6.58 jail contacts on average, 82.81 jail bed days on average. And I will say the jail bed days actually went down a little bit from the last BHCC meeting. So folks are on average in this population seemingly to have at least a few less days in jail. And we are seeing about 8 ER visits on average. However, that number is only based on our Fuse participants. Again, since we don't have access to the health data on all of the top 25, the ER visits can only be based on our actual participants. On page 18 in your packet is the Fuse participant data, which de-identifies the data and shows you a little bit about what their information is specific to justice contacts, HMIS days, what their ER visits were like before and what they've been since they became a Fuse participant, as well as how long they've been. We have also helped the majority of our Fuse participants find housing or remain stably housed. We only had 2 who were housed before they came to us. And while they don't all have a mainstream voucher, there are several that do have a mainstream voucher through the Bloomington Housing Authority that we had partnered with BHA on approximately 2 years ago to help them get those. And so we have a few who fall within the mainstream vouchers, but the others have also been able to find housing that we have worked with them and landlords to help secure.
Do you have voluntary participation for anybody that for housing, that provides housing?
So nobody provides it free of charge. I mean, everyone is either paying rent or has a voucher to assist with rent. But we have found some landlords willing to work with us. I mean, as the data shows, a number of our folks have prior justice contact, and there are some landlords who are more hesitant to rent to individuals with criminal histories. And so we've also been able to establish some relationships with a couple of landlords to find places that are suitable for our Fuse participants, and also assure the landlords that we are also having daily contact with folks. So.
Do you have any idea about the number of vouchers or the BHA has, or are the availability? Are they fairly readily accessible?
No, so we, the original application for the mainstream vouchers resulted in 13 mainstream vouchers. I do believe that BHA got additional funding for the mainstream vouchers, which upped the voucher number by maybe 1 or 2 along the way. At present time, all vouchers are in use, which means none of them are available at this point, which is also a good thing. It means that we filled the vouchers. They're not just sitting unused. But there is currently a wait list for someone else if they wanted a voucher. As in terms of Fuse participants, I believe we have 3 Fuse participants who have a mainstream voucher.
Okay, thank you. If anyone else have questions, please speak up if you're not on the screen. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the budget.
Okay. In your packets, I included a pie chart very similar to last year's December budget update, and just give a quick overview of what the 2021 budget looks like. As a quick reminder, and the one thing that I did not do in this year's packet that I did do in last year's packet, but we'll go over verbally, is that this only represents 1/4 of the quarter that is part of the intergovernmental agreement with the town and the city. So there are, keeping in mind that the other 3 quarters do not come into this bucket, so to speak. And the budget overall continues to fund the Fuse program, the triage center. We continue to have money allocated for a grant for youth and adolescent services. Our behavioral health forum, both virtual and with the idea that we may be able to do an in-person event next year, as well as continuing education seminars for professionals. There is a breakdown by larger category shown here for our overall budget. We did look to find ways to reduce costs and expenditures. So overall, our budget is less than in years past, and have found ways to make sure that we're continuing to provide the services that we both started and have intended to do, but to make sure that we're doing it in as fiscally responsible of a way as we can.
Are we all on page 19? If you have a printed copy, is there anyone else that would have questions? Okay, thank you very much. From there. We've been having to do a lot of talking. We're about ready to go ahead again. We can get into the program.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is with regard to the trauma-informed county, which originated out of the Behavioral Health Priority Action Team from the CHIP and CHNA. And that group, we talked about this a little bit at one of the last BHCC meetings, but that group identified the benefits of the geographic county taking steps to become trauma-informed and resilience-oriented, which can also be sort of a big concept to wrap our heads around. So some smaller, shorter-term goals for that initiative are beginning to understand how many organizations in our community are trauma informed and resilience oriented? If organizations have taken steps toward it, how far into their process are they? And even backing up a little, one of the earlier goals in this whole process will be determining what our process to measure this will be. What assessment tool will organizations use? But also, what is community messaging? How do we get organizations to understand that this is relevant and impacts the community as a whole? So we have put together a group that would be a core implementation team. That start of a group met once, and as part of that planning, we also talked about who else needed to be at the table, and making sure that we have representation from different populations, different parts of our community, that we also have representation from different sized organizations, and that it is not just within the social service realm. So I reached out to a few BHCC members. I reached out to a few people who had expressed interest in the past. We have also made sure to have representation from individuals who have self-identified trauma in their own history, so that we are also having their voices at the table, as well as having representation from the Regional Office of Education. So we have the school system there to weigh in. So our next meeting will be in January. I have begun outreach to some of the other groups or types of individuals that our initial group identified we need to make sure we have at the table. And then we will begin to establish some goals as a group. As I told them, one of my goals for this is that it is a working group, and that it is a coming together of ideas. While I, on behalf of BHCC, am moving it forward, I want it to be a community project, and that's why I have set it for them to be a collaboration of ideas in different organizations. So we are not far enough along to have anything to really show you or to bring back, but simply to say that we are beginning to move forward on it, and we'll meet again in January.
Have we called for someone else? Difficult. Anyone have comments at this time? Okay, thank you. Any other thing that you have? Again, I'd like to say this month, appreciate all the contributions to our BHCC newsletter. It really is really helpful. I'm hoping that we're getting it out to enough folks who understand exactly what all we're doing with it, but you providers and people that have participated really appreciate that. Our December issue has a nice picture of a snow scene on it. I don't know if that's the brain is good luck or bad luck for that situation, but it's a beautiful picture. Thank you very much for finding that. Anybody else have anything today? For other business, do you have anything else, Ms. Malott?
I do not.
As you could probably tell from the minutes, I promised to have a roundtable session. And unfortunately, because of the difficulty to have a roundtable that's not in person, I have not followed up with that. Also, I got sidetracked with the election, as so many of us did, and so many other activities. I do still want to do that. There are people on the screen or people involved that I'd like to sit down and talk with. I don't know if it's possible, but I would like to contact some of you, and specifically about the youth situation and youth services. And if not, I'm going to try to come around and somehow and do it with you the best we can with the social distancing and circumstances that we have before us. I've asked Mrs. Schaefer to put together a team of people to go back. We're now at the end of 5 years since we originally wrote our mental health action plan. Many of you served on that in different writing committees, are part of our overall advisory group that participated, over 70 people at that time. And I've asked her to go back and take a look at putting together some people who can actually just see where we are, evaluate a little bit, see where our status is, see what needs to be tweaked or any other direction that we think we need to go to accomplish some more of the goals, or see if there's any other needs that arose during that time. So, Mr. Schaefer, do you have anything, any comments, or we'll try to go ahead with that in the following months and get to some of you to see if it's possible as well.
No, other than probably some of you, if you remember what we did before, there might be some of that kind of thing. I'll probably reach out to most everyone, either individually or maybe in a smaller group, and then utilize any roundtables that the chairman has to get more information. I think that the original plan was a good start and a good roadmap to begin. And I think that we've all learned a lot from that. And I think our pandemic has actually shown us some things that we didn't see then. And so I think that this is a really good time to do an update to that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything for today?
Yes, this is Karen Zangerly, and I'm sorry to join you late. I was having technical difficulties. Tricia asked me to speak today about some of the changes at PATH. Did somebody already cover that information, or can I cover that now?
No, please do. Please.
Okay. All right. So we are preparing, of course, for winter, and our biggest fear right now is housing the homeless because of the fact we've lost half the beds at Safe Harbor due to social distancing, and we are limited at Home Sweet Home missions. But I am happy to say that usually we get about 6,000 from FEMA for hotels, and this year we got 18,000, and we had another source come in with 25,000. Our first goal is not to keep people in hotels for very long, but we will be able to keep them off the street because of the fact that we have a reduction in beds. PATH has embarked on a great new adventure. She laughs to herself that we are now have texting services. If you would like to text your question or you want to talk to somebody, if you 898-211 with assistance from the health department. We have a full-time person who's going to be working evenings, who's going to be supervising, well, a number of things, but the responsibilities include marketing the texting number to people in the age range of like 18 to 24, who we do not hear from very often. So we're looking forward to that. Right now, only the staff is answering the text lines, and we have limited hours, but it'll tell you that if you punch in that number, it'll say PATH 211 is only available such and such hours. If you need assistance, please call 211. And we hope to have the volunteers all trained by the end of January, but we have had difficulties with that because of them going home or not going home, or they're going to go home sooner rather than later. So I know this will clear up, but I will say that we had our first class of volunteers that we did virtually, which was full of fun and excitement. And I'm very pleased to say that I think we started with 30 and we ended with 25 who passed their exams. And so I'm really happy with that we got through that. Those will be the same people that ultimately will be answering those texts and continue to answer the phone lines for PATH. Do I have any questions? At this point, I'm not looking for, we have the possibility down the road, once we have some experience, of maybe needing more help because of texting, but we don't know that now. So we are not actively pursuing any funds and giving us 6 months at least to see what kind of traffic that we do generate on this line and if we need further staffing. Anything else that I can answer?
Anyone? Thank you. Congratulations on getting the texting up and go.
Yeah, finally. Thank you, John.
Right. Thanks for joining us. Karen, I understand I have trouble at home. I would go to meeting. I've had difficulty with a couple meetings as well. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's home Wi-Fi. There are different types of things that come into play. Our next meeting is Friday, March 12th. So you may want to write that down. Apologize for any delay because of our technical situation this morning. Really appreciate you all joining us. Hope you have a happy and safe holiday. I did notice in the Pangraph this week, there was an article stating that McLean County, which is virtually about the same size as the state of Rhode Island, is now the top wind producing county in Illinois. A follow-up study confirmed, though, that we also have more politicians per capita than anybody in the state of Illinois. So, might chance a little humor. Great Christmas. We'll see you all soon. Thank you all for joining us. Take care, stay safe and healthy.
Happy holidays all.
Bye.